What Would Google Do by Jeff Jarvis. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, then make sure to smash that like button in case you haven't already. The thing with this book is Google is so singularly successful that the author presents it as a new way of thinking. And one way to think like Google is to let people have control. As long as you can kind of regulate that control, you can give more of it to them and get more out of it. The author has an entire chapter talking about how no one can really escape like the true nature and power of user feedback. Talking about the one time that his Dell computer basically like went to shit and their customer service was really lame about it and he was furious and he wrote this like scathing review and it went viral and Dell took that and used it and took it seriously and found out how to bounce back. I think it was like affecting their stock price. It's followed by a chapter about the opposite, like when companies get more out of people simply by putting as little as they need to into everything to get us to do all the work for them but enjoy it at the same time. It's insane! The next chapter is about how Google thinks in terms of like everything being completely distributed, which is weird to think about. Like as companies, you will have to see yourself from the outside walking in. He says that the question is, do you have the answer? Because of Google's size, it's important to make it our friend. And that means that we all want what the author calls Google juice, visibility on the site. The author has some interesting SEO tips here as well. So much of this book seems to focus on the benefits of collective relationships kind of uniting together and treating small like the new big. And by small, I mean small. And by big, I mean big. Google is just in so many different businesses that you can't put it under a category. In other words, it is a blue ocean. I really love that the author talks about how like any given company can do what Google does in their own way and think like Google thinks in terms of like a lot of it actually has to do with transparency. A lot of it has to do with giving people free things all the time in what the author calls the gift economy. A lot of it has to do with collaboration with customers. This part stood out when he talked about their 80-20 time management innovation rule.
I don't want to use Google the way someone else says I should, following its path of navigation. I don't have to feel stupid looking up instructions. Google never makes me feel foolish for making mistakes. Do you mean it graciously asks when I misspell or mistype? It doesn't waste time trying to find what I want. It just gives me a blank box and puts the world behind it.
The thing is, the public is just the boss. And there is now a relationship between control and trust. Like papers, for example, the newspapers and stuff, they will die if they can't adapt to this. Only 19% of Americans trust mainstream news sources. And that was at the writing of this book, which I looked it up and it was that was 11 years ago almost. And this book was actually a partial collaboration between the author and his readers of his blogs. He doesn't just talk about how Google is like affecting journalism and news, but also how it's affecting entertainment and how Google has turned everything into a collaboration. Remixing music, just music have so many different things. It used to be like about copyright. Now it's a way to enter the conversation. And keep in mind, I don't know why I'm figuring this out after writing half the review, but this book was written like 11 years ago. So think about how much Google has done in the last 11 years. Now there are millions and millions of little Hollywoods. Google has also changed advertising more than anything else. Marketers can now pay for performance instead of space, time, and eyeballs. This is just insane. I don't get it. This book was written 11 years ago. I don't know why I'm reviewing it now. I should have started reviewing these books 11 years ago, I guess. But you can literally see the difference between then and now. The author goes over his interview with Gary Vaynerchuk about, what in business is blowing up and going out of style. What industries and why. For anyone nowadays, at least, who thinks Gary V is just some motivational speaker, he isn't. Look at his older content. It's actually golden. Like it's gold. Like when people were selling gold, they were actually really just low-key selling his content. There's a section where the author talks about the challenges Google is facing in terms of what the author calls Googleization, where the public makes and leaves its marks on the products and services. I mean, Google, in my opinion, is a great example of how much money companies are leaving on the table by not really caring that much about what their customers have to say, let alone having the customers do the customization for themselves and just do the work, but have that as easy for them as possible to access. There are lots of future ideas as well, literally talking about what would Google do if it were a restaurant? What would Google do if it were an auto company? This book was written very shortly before the start of Waymo, the Google, or now actually Alphabet subsidiary that makes self-driving cars. What would Google do if it were a venture capital firm? The impact that Google has made on the planet is just, it's undeniable. The ending actually has a section about whether God is immune to Google, what the author calls Googlethink. Some negative reviews on Amazon said that this book is written just by like a Google fanboy and that he's self-centered. I just don't see it. Worried about your privacy? Sure. Google just needs all the information about you in order to organize itself better to serve up more relevant results for you. Is there something bad about this? Hey, that's how Google can give you what it does for free and provide some income for masses who serve up their ads. I think that makes sense. I mean, I don't know why someone would expect this book to be about what Google does wrong. If it's about what Google does right, isn't that something more worth looking into anyway? Literally, like, for your own sake. I don't know. I guess it's a matter of perspective. Quotes. The internet is a big race to free. It's better to disrupt and cannibalize yourself than let a competitor do it for you. No amount of advertising can make up for a bad product. The medium is the message and the customer is the new medium. I bought this domain name from Google because I have a mutually respectful relationship with them. That relationship does not require human involvement, but it does require human value. Direction 1. I recommend this book if you want to know anything about how Google thinks, what kind of thinking Google does, how they go about things. I think from an operational perspective, there's not much this book really brings to the surface, like really, but from an abstract, like foundational thinking type of perspective, it's an amazing way to look at things. Direction 2. If you like this book, for people who want to know about the dark side of what the internet is doing, check out The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, who's actually mentioned at some points in What Would Google Do. It's almost hilariously frightening how Carr just like tears the effects of technology apart. It's one of the most alarming audiobooks I've ever listened to. But for more of the real world like business strategies and stuff that are vaguely talked about in the part of this one book where it's like, what if Google did this? What if Google had an auto company or a restaurant or anything like that? I recommend The Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk. It is not like his newer books. I don't like his newer books as much. I think they're more shallow, The Shallows, like Nicholas Carr. Maybe you could say that what the internet is doing to our brains is kind of like what the internet has done to Gary Vaynerchuk between The Thank You Economy and Crushing It. That sounds really messed up, but I don't know, maybe I have to listen to his books more. What Would Google Do by Jeff Jarvis. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and maybe read the reviews, that and all the other books that I mentioned in this video. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it, but hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't know why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe, but if you have subscribed and you want to turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.